Welcome to Our View, the podcast, where we're changing the conversation about disability one story at a time. Here at Our View, we're all about education, awareness, and shifting perspectives. With each episode, we dive into honest, meaningful conversations with individuals from across the disabled community, amplifying voices, sharing lived experiences, and challenging the way society sees disability. Because disability isn't a limitation, it's a part of the human experience. So pull up a seat and join us as we broaden the view and bring real, powerful stories into focus. This is Our View. I would like to welcome everyone back to a new episode of the Our View podcast. I'm your host, Arthur Aston, and I am happy to be joined today by my guest, Robyn Dirk. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited for our conversation today, Robyn.
Me too. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes. So I would like to start off this episode, as I start off all of my episodes, with asking my guests to introduce yourself, to share your story, what it is that you want our listeners to know about you.
Sure. Thank you. Again, my name is Robyn. And now in my life, I am a travel blogger and a chronic illness warrior, is how I like to word it. I've been married to my husband for about 7 years, and we have traveled to 44 countries together so far. Travel is a huge passion of mine, and it actually sparked the creation of our travel blog, Two Empty Passports, where we share our experiences and tips to help other people with disabilities kind of travel the world. My journey with disabilities started back in 2001. I was hit by a drunk driver, and I was in university at the time, and obviously that just completely derailed my path. It took a long time for me to move past the, I guess, healing, if we want to call it that for now. My injuries at the time kind of forced me to put my life on hold. And it was about 2 years of consistent doctor's appointments and specialists and physical therapy. And I was eventually diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which is a chronic pain condition that affects the entire body. And it took a long time to figure out, I guess, how to navigate that new world, my new reality. And as I mentioned, travel was kind of the igniter. It just kept me motivated to keep healing and working on myself so that I could finally get out there. And in 2006, I went with my sister for our first trip abroad. We went to Europe and Egypt, and it was an amazing experience. But living with, and now I have a few more disabilities. That's been 20 years. So I've just learned to, I think part of my journey has involved learning to pivot and adapt your life so that you can keep going. And of course, there's that grieving process, but I'm a happy person. And so I need to keep moving forward and just learning how I can be the best version of myself in the body that God gave me.
That's fantastic. I love, I'm so excited to talk about your travel experiences. I love traveling. It's so interesting that you use the word pivot, because that is something I just had a conversation with somebody last week about. With living with a disability, you find a lot of times you have to pivot for many different reasons. For me, being born with my disability, it's all I've known. I've had to have surgeries. Before I was 17 years old, I had 16 surgeries. So it's and not all of them were successful. So it was, the word pivot is something, I don't think my parents used that word back then. I might not have known what it meant, but that's what it was. We had to adapt and we had to change some things and try it again. And it's just, once you have to do that in life with, with certain things, it becomes not easier, but you become used to it, and you find that it's something that you just have to do. So um, that's really interesting that you use that word. That's exactly what I was talking about with somebody last week. Yeah. So as you mentioned, you have a few disability diagnoses that are not visible. So some people call them non-visible. I recently read a book by Tiffany Yu where she uses the word non-apparent disabilities, which I really like that. Um, and that can be challenging because people, for me, I use crutches. I wear braces and use crutches, or I use my wheelchair. So when I show up, you see everything. It's out there in the open. So for somebody who, like yourself, where your disability is not visible when you show up and into a room, can you talk about how you have had to the experiences you've had with people and how they respond to you when they find out that you have a disability? Is there surprise or disbelief, or what has been your experience with that?
Sure. Yes, definitely. Um, I guess I should back up for a second, and just say that I also now in 2021 was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and IST, which is another form of tachycardia, which just means my heart rate is elevated majority of the time. So I get fatigued really easily and I don't have a lot of energy. But as you mentioned, they are all, I know there's several words, hidden
Hmm.
disabilities and visible disabilities. It doesn't really, I know some people are a bit more particular on which word they use, but they're all the same to me. So,
Yes.
but yes, with each one, I've had to learn to pivot and to expect that, I guess, and I don't love the word judgment, but that there is some judgment thrown my way sometimes. Um, so, for example, I was a teacher, and that's one area I had to pivot in. It was actually my second career. So after I was graduated from university and became a graphic designer, I couldn't do that job because of one of my disabilities anymore. So I had to return to school and became a teacher. And I thought in a way that would be easier. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking at the time. I love it, but it was definitely not an easier
Mm-mm.
path forward. And then I remained a teacher until my recent diagnosis about 2 years ago. Um, and so I didn't show up to work with a wheelchair. Um, at the time, I didn't have my own wheelchair. I do now, but and I have a wheelchair sticker on my car, and but I don't need my wheelchair for everything. It's for longer distances. But for example, if I pull up to the grocery store, because I can't walk through all of Walmart, it's too big for me now and I get too fatigued. But if I run in for something um close to the door, I will park in wheelchair parking because I get fatigued so easily. But when I
Hmm.
step out of the car, I see people like, where's her grandmother? You know,
Right.
where's the old lady with her? And it's just me. So sometimes they glare, they make a comment. I've had a few comments, but I guess I think that we as disability warriors have a or learn to have a thicker skin. And we see what's important and we're grateful for what we do have, what we can do, that we're still here. So I just kind of do my best to brush that aside and understand that unfortunately not everyone will understand immediately, but hopefully they're willing to have a conversation or ask a question because I am always happy to answer.
Yes. Yeah. It's so interesting that you said you get out of your car and people look for your grandmother or the person with the disability. Um, it's I've heard people have said this to me that they have had strangers say, "Oh, you're too young to have a disability," and that happened to me a couple of weeks ago for the very first time. And I said, oh, well, it's really going to upset you to find out that I was born with this disability. I was really young. And it's like people just think they have to find something to say. And it's just like, you could just really say hello to us. Like, it's fine. You can say
Yes.
hi. That's great. Just like you would start any other conversation. Um, yeah, so it goes back to, like you said, with, developing that thick skin and learning how to pivot and just unfortunately, getting used to the stares and the judgment, that comes along with this, which is a shame and very sad to
Yes.
say, but it is our reality for a lot of us with disabilities. Um, Now I would love to switch to talk about your traveling, which
Sure.
I'm so excited about it because I love to travel. I have not been out of the country, but definitely plan to do that. And so you said you've been to 44 countries.
Yes, I have.
That's awesome.
I know my goal is to visit 50 countries by 50. Um, and I'm the same age as you, so it's getting there, but I am at 44 countries, so I'm on my way and yeah, it's just it's just been like motivating me every year. Where else can we go? And of course my physical capabilities do now play a much bigger role in how we travel. But I it is it's just so ingrained in who I am. I can't ever imagine giving up that part of me.
Yeah. And you said you write a travel blog called Two Empty Passports, which I
Yes.
love that name. It's so fantastic. I love it. So what inspired you to start a travel blog, and what type of topics do you cover on that blog, and do you cover any topics that are related to traveling as a disabled person?
Yes, for sure. Um, Two Empty Passports actually started in 2022, and it started at a really interesting time. That was when I was going through a difficult time with my health and being diagnosed with the new conditions. And I just prior to that, with my fibromyalgia, whenever we had gone traveling over the past, let's say, 10 years, we would research online just like everyone else and find an itinerary and kind of hit the road running. And then I would just God would laugh because I can't do everything that's in that itinerary. So, for example, one year we went to Paris, and you have two museums and a monument and this restaurant, and so I tried my best to pack it all in, and then the next day I was stuck in the hotel room because I couldn't move. And it was a really hard lesson to learn. I made the exact same mistake the following year. It took a few years to accept um, accept I refer to myself as an old lady. So to accept my old lady body and what you can do. And so my travel blog is I wanted a place to that people could come like me and find an itinerary that would work for them. That wasn't jam packed with 18 different sites, but gave a few options and can I try to teach people that you can prioritize and still have the most amazing trip. And I give accessible travel tips and destination guides, and we focus on slow travel. So you really get to immerse yourself in the destination without feeling like you missed out on anything.
That's great. I love that you mentioned your old lady. I always say I'm 43 on the outside, but I'm at least 93 inside. So
That's what
it's
I see. I'm like, she is 90 years old from here down.
right. I'm 43 on the outside, but I'm definitely at least 80 inside. Like
Um,
this is an old man's body for sure.
well, sometimes I joke and think I should have named my blog Old Lady Travel.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you got into it a little bit where you talk about taking your time to travel, as knowing your limits is pretty much what it comes down to. I love that you said, it happened 2 years in a row where you're like, okay, I'm going to go all the way, and then I'm going to turn around and do it again next year. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, it's still like, it still doesn't work, but it's, it's great, because I think that's it's definitely what I would do for sure. It's like, okay, I know that was last year. Like, this year I can definitely do it. So yeah, then find out the hard way, like, oh no, I still can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but are there any specific things that you have learned, traveling all of these different places, things that you have learned about yourself to do that you can do to assist yourself in making the trip more smooth? I know for me, when I thought of this question, I thought about myself, because of the bathrooms on the airplanes are really small. And like I said, I walk with braces and crutches, but like, I need a little bit more space to balance myself. And like, a restroom on an airplane is not the place to try to do a balancing act all the time. So, there are things that I have to do. I know that I can't drink a lot of water before I go on a flight. So those types of things. Are there tricks that you have learned for yourself that have helped make travel a little bit more smooth?
Yes, definitely. Um, I travel with well, there's problems all over with air travel.
Yes.
For sure, a lot of that could be improved. I had been using wheelchair assistance at the airport and at museums for 10 years at least.
Hmm.
So knowing your limits, respecting your body's limits, and knowing when you need to ask. I think a lot of people don't know that you can ask the museum or ask the airport for the use of a wheelchair. Um, it's so far. Airports are ginormous. I
Yes.
don't know. Sometimes I just look at my husband. I'm like, how are you not tired yet?
Right.
Like, the terminal is so far. So asking for the use of a wheelchair. Um, it's very important for me to schedule in some rest time. So I've learned to. One of our last major trips was to Japan, and that's the first trip that I took my own wheelchair on. And so there was a lot of um, acceptance that I needed to do internally, because that would have been the first trip to use a wheelchair, and so it's very different than just using a wheelchair at a museum. But with my fatigue levels, learning that that's okay. I'm still able to go and explore the world, and it's okay that I'm just doing it sitting down now. And then scheduling rest and prioritizing sites. So again, like the mistake I made in Paris, now we look at each day and I Google map each activity and kind of make them so that, like, choose the ones that are very close within proximity for each day. So we're not taking public transportation far distances. And then prioritizing that 1 and 2 activities. And if I can't make it to number 3, then that's okay, because I saw my bucket list item for that day. And now I can go relax in the Japanese onsen, for example, or sit in a cafe with a glass of wine and just watch the people go by. Um, so I think things like that um, are really helpful. Of course, taking any comforts. I travel with a travel size ergonomic pillow and a lumbar support pillow, my compression leggings for my tachycardia. So all those things that kind of every little um, trick, helps you make it through the day.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the prioritizing, what it is that you want to do that day. So you can do that first. Make sure that like you said, get to see your bucket item list,
Yes.
for that day, and aim for 3. But if you only make 1 or 2, that's fine. Um, but prioritizing and making sure that you schedule in that time to rest, and like you said, drinking wine, and
Yes.
taking in the food, and the sights of just in your local area of where you're staying. It's really great as well. Um, so my next question is, can you share with us what your favorite book or a new musical artist that you discovered last year in 2024?
This was the one question I was like, oh. um, um, I at first with this old lady body comes a lot of brain fog, so I was like, what did I read last year? Had to go back and look at my list, but I love to read thrillers at night. Um, and I'm a big fan of David Baldacci. I think I'm going to say that wrong.
Hmm.
And I also love travel books. So
Okay.
one of my favorites was titled "The Kindness of Strangers," and it's a collection of short stories where different travelers have experienced just unbelievable kindness while in another country.
Wow.
Um, that makes me think of my own experience even right now,
Hmm.
if I can share. So
Yes.
when we were in Japan, for example, my fourth day in Kyoto, I had pushed myself a little too far and I needed to rest. And I thought we were going to have to miss the geisha tea ceremony. And we had paid in advance and I was crying. She wasn't a pretty picture at all that day. Um, but my husband and my sister went there and asked if they could make any adjustments so that I could have a bit more of an accessible experience. And they were so accommodating. I guess, the way that they dress you up in the kimono, they made it so that I could sit down in my wheelchair while they did it. They brought us to a special room on the first floor. So just complete kindness, and I just love and cherish those moments. So to read other people's just
Hmm.
inspires me to keep traveling and keep meeting, because there's such amazing people around this world. And language barriers or religion or like anything shouldn't get in the way of that kindness.
Yes, and I love that. I love the fact that they just asked if, could it be more accommodating for you and your needs, and it was, it wasn't a big deal for them to make those changes. That's great, and it's so great to hear that, because so many times, I found myself, not so much anymore, um, but there were times when, I would be hesitant to ask, well,
Mhm.
can this be a little bit more accommodating for me because I use a wheelchair or because I have my crutches, and more often than not, like in your case, it can be done. It's just, it doesn't appear that way on the outside, but they do have a plan in place, and it can be put into action fairly easily. So that's really great that
Fantastic.
you were still able to have that experience, while sitting and being comfortable in your chair, for sure. That's awesome.
It was
Uh,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. So, my last question I have for you is can you share where people are able to find you on social media, and also the address of your travel blog?
Yes, for sure. My website is 2emptypassports.com. The word two, TWO. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook. And I also have an Accessible Explorers Facebook group, where people with disabilities kind of gather and share their information and share questions and stories to help one another plan their most accessible journey. And most recently, now that you said you want to travel,
Yeah.
we started organizing wheelchair accessible small group tours. So you don't have to be in a wheelchair. I know that some people are thinking I have to, but it's just for people of all abilities. So whether you walk slow, use a wheelchair, want to travel with a friend, or just meet like-minded people, we have our one tour that's going to Switzerland this May. And right now we're about to start planning, or not planning, sorry, advertising a safari to Tanzania for next July. So you should join us.
Oh. Oh.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk. We will talk for
Yes.
sure.
That
Wow.
information on the website too. So feel free, anyone out
Yes.
there.
Yes, definitely. I will be in touch.
That'd
That
be
sounds
awesome.
amazing. Yeah, that really sounds amazing. I'm so happy to have had this conversation with you and to share your story and your experience of traveling and just offering the great advice, to other travelers with different disabilities. That it is possible to travel, and doing what's right for you and for your needs and for for what your diagnosis and your condition is what's most important, and making that trip um, accessible and accommodating for you and for what it is that you need as an individual, which is different for everybody. So I think that's really the whole purpose. One of the main purposes of this podcast is that everybody has we may have the same diagnosis, but it looks different for everybody, and our needs are different for each individual, just like every individual person. So it's great to hear your travel experience of having traveled, visited to 44 countries so far, and going to get at least two more, off
Yes,
your list. Yeah, so that's really great, and thank you so much for this conversation.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. It's been fantastic. I
Yeah,
hope you'll
great.
join us.
Yes, yes. So thank you for your time, and I will definitely be in touch, and I'll really be in touch about that trip to for the safari for sure. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Our View, the podcast, where we amplify the voices and stories of those in the disabled community, one conversation at a time. If this story moved you, taught you something new, or sparked a different perspective, we'd love to hear from you. Write a review of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Follow us on all social media platforms at Our View for Life 25. At Our View, we believe that disability is not a limitation. It is a powerful part of the human experience. So until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep seeing the world through our view.